Hello everybody, welcome back to the Commonwealth. Welcome back to Commonwealth Flipper. We're going to have an interesting conversation today. Told of 3 topics, but the big one is going to be overarching. We're going to talk about the long-term viability, well, short-term and long-term, mid-term, I suppose, mid-range viability of eBay in particular, reselling in general. We're going to look at a couple other topics as well. One that I don't love to talk about, but I'm going to talk about it today because I think the ground is shifting a little bit in this area, and I want to talk about that, plus the overall numbers for October. Let's go take a look. It is fall, y'all. You know how I know? Because I'm turning this heater off. Because let me tell you, it's a little cold in here. Made a sale right off the bat here before we get into these topics. I had to get up here in my storage area to see if I had bubble wrap. I'm like, is that all I have? But I have some more American Bubble Boy, link below. You can go check it out. And I'm running out of bubble wrap, and that is a good sign because I have it automatically delivered. And whenever I have to make an extra order from Joel over there, I know I'm selling a lot of stuff, and that is good. Not terribly high-end, high value, although there's a couple nice ones in there, I suppose. Wii U, Super Mario U video game. It does not have the little pamphlet and stuff in it, so $10.40 plus shipping. You know, I like this topic so much, I might put off the October numbers until the next video. Although I will just say this as a little caveat. I did not sell as much as I wanted to in October, but I sold more than I thought in October because of everything that's been going on. So my wife's been gone. She's coming back today. I'm super excited. And Jess came back today for just a little while to ship the divdit orders, but she's still not going to be here very much. The productivity for me in October was down significantly with some major exceptions. You know, using Eeasier to get some bulk listings up was really helpful. But my individual listing efforts were down, especially because I was trying to keep the divdit sales going over there. Q4 is pretty good over there most of the time. And so it's, you know, a little bit good, a little bit bad, I guess I could say that. We're having a Christmas week over there on divdit this week. But I think I'm going to give you those numbers next week. We're going to look at, there's a couple things that I want to talk about today, but the one that I want to get off to right off the bat is the overall viability. Last, or a couple videos ago, I'm not even sure. My mind is swimming at this point. I'm so busy. But we had talked about the eBay promoted listings and the attribution system and all that. And boy, it was really, really interesting in the comments. I feel that way just out of pure principle more than anything. But it is not to say that I think reselling or even eBay is on some kind of a slide that's going to be dooming us forever. It's not. I've never said that. I don't believe that. I've said all the time I'm very bullish on reselling. I do think of it a little bit differently than I used to because of all the new upstarts and all the new ways to resell and just so much opportunity out there. But I want to look specifically at eBay. And I've even done a little research, which is something I don't do very often. And then we're going to look at the global picture of reselling for a second. And then I'm going to give you some thoughts, maybe. I hesitate to say suggestions, but I'm starting to see people do this a little bit more than in the past, although there's been ebbs and flows of this. And I think this is key for a lot of sellers out there. And a lot of sellers are doing this and listening to this channel right now. That was a mouthful, but you know, we'll pick and talk a little bit. I'd love for you to chime in. I'm looking for a Magic Johnson one. You know what? My daughter might have listed one of these. I bought these ornaments specifically for Eeasier, and then I didn't use Eeasier on it because of all the stuff that's been going on. But I got a really good deal on them. I think I have to go inside to get this one. My daughter did list this one. Uh-oh, I see 2 dogs. Come on. So this week, until today, till this evening, my wife's been gone. Of course, Jess hasn't been here for 2 weeks. And it's been me and my daughter and my sons. And it's been awesome, but very... Let's just say that I couldn't have made it without Reagan. Not just on eBay. She listed... She put in 6 hours of work this week. She was doing the divdit stuff with me instead of Jess. And labeling things and putting them in the right boxes. And she listed, I don't know, maybe 15 drafts or so. I was so proud of her and so thankful. Man, maybe a little bit more than that. This was one of them. It's not a high dollar one. But I'm teaching her how to list. And then I'm going to teach her how to use Eeasier. So $7.90. I'll talk about that at the end of the video too. $7.90 plus shipping. Magic Johnson keepsake ornament. You know, I used to own eBay stock. I don't think I do anymore. I hardly keep up with that stuff. I automate everything. I'm like, forget it. And I don't have that much of anything. I used to own FedEx in particular as well. I think I got rid of that. Anyway, it's kind of a side point right there. But I do find it interesting to look at the stock market, to look at the reports that come out, the quarterlies and stuff like that, and the guidance that's given. We're not going to get into the details of it. I'm kind of going to keep it pretty general today. But I've said this for quite a while, and people look at reselling if you're just an eBay seller, and they look at that and they don't necessarily see the growth that they once saw. Now, there's this aberration from a few years back with COVID and everything, and so it's kind of gotten back on a different plane at this point. There's modest growth. I think you will continue to see very modest growth for eBay. I don't think you're going to see giant spikes in eBay growth anytime in the near future. But the fact that there still is growth on a platform like eBay that's been around forever is an amazing sign to me. It's a really good sign to have growth on eBay and to have all these other platforms even reporting, you know, either modest growth or terrific growth, and to have live selling growing as much as it is. Whether that's Whatnot or wherever you sell. I mean, obviously I don't sell on Whatnot, but this is a topic that some of you do. I don't know. You know what? That's a good topic for a different video. There's some interesting stuff going on in that too. But my general statement here, and the growth of the secondary markets, even using like Walmart's platform, and of course Amazon's a behemoth, but it's not really the kind of reselling that I do and most of you do. And to have, you know, there's Mercari, Poshmark, all these different places, and you're seeing growth for the most part everywhere, and you're still seeing modest growth on eBay. Now, I think when people have commentary on eBay and eBay's numbers and stuff, you know, really, y'all, as resellers, we don't care about eBay's profit, because their profits come from things that might not be good for us, like we talked about on the promoted thing last time. But what I think is interesting is the overall volume of sales. That really intrigues me as well. International Kiss Me Kids magnetized bobbleheads. This is such a Keith Vintage Sport Flips item because I bought it from Keith. I like to buy stuff in bundles from him over there, and then I can usually make a little bit of money. I don't get rich off of it, buying off of him on Dibdit, but I definitely add to my stock in the winter buying over there, and I make a profit almost every single time. These are really cool. I shouldn't say almost. I make a profit every single time buying from him over there. So I've sold probably 20 of items I bought from him and some other sellers, $19 plus shipping. I'll read you a few things in between sales. eBay's competing with these big players and emerging players. Let's see what it says here. And with social commerce. That's a big key to this. And, you know, what's going on TikTok may affect some of us, but it doesn't really affect us too much. But these live selling sites affect us in multiple ways. Some of them good. I know people who source online all of their merchandise. That's all. They never go out to a garage sale. They never go to a thrift store. They never buy a storage unit. They thrift online and resell. It's convenient. I don't think the margins are as good, but it's definitely convenient, especially in the wintertime. But the most interesting part to me about this is the next little sentence. That means more pressure on fee structures, shipping, logistics, and seller expectations. That's not pressure on us. Well, some of it is. That's pressure on the reselling platforms themselves. So we may not like the changes that happen and the fee structures, and we got complaints about all that. We always will as resellers, I suppose. But the overall look of this thing is there are big players in this that are competing for us. And I think one thing I didn't talk about on a video a couple times ago was the fact that you want your sellers to also be buyers. That is a sign of a healthy marketplace. And that means you need to cooperate and work with your sellers. I am an eBay buyer, have been for a very, very long time. I'm not going to be an eBay buyer if I'm paying more for something. I'm going to find it somewhere else. But most of the time I can find it cheaper over there. That's why I buy on Dibdit as well. It's my site. I sell on there. I'm going to buy on there as well. But it has to make sense. And I think that's part of this equation that some of these reselling platforms don't always grasp. These dogs want Mama to come home. I know, you've been missing her. You've been having to put up with me, huh? I probably shouldn't say that they don't grasp it. They do grasp it. I read into the stuff, and they talk about it often. They want, eBay does. They're struggling to get more of their sellers to buy on the platform. They're not hitting their marks on that, if you will. The Hobbit, Tolkien. This is a cool little book set here. Well, it's not a set, I guess, but it's in a box. I think that's cool. Plus, I love the green in that. Anyway, this one was a viewer sale. We had 6. We're going to do like 20 sales. 6 of them were to viewers, y'all. That's 30% of the sales. And that is amazing. And I really do appreciate that. That's higher than usual. This one went to Kristen. $25 for that one, plus shipping. I have a feeling that one came out on the Commonwealth Picker channel in my video on last Wednesday. I think maybe they saw it over there. Let's see what they say. I saw this in a recent video, and I'm excited that it was still here. Love watching your videos and following along on all the platforms, Kristen. So I've skipped ahead in some of mine. I was like a month behind, month and a half, but I skipped ahead a little bit to put a little bit more recent videos, and we'll pull some from a couple months ago, and we'll put them in the dead of winter when I can't, you know, January when I'm not going out to sales. Anyway, Kristen, I appreciate it. So I sold a Bible, and it was also to a viewer, and I can't read the comment. I just can't. But you know what? I'm going to read the comment. I'll put it at the end of the video today because the person who bought it is sending it to somebody else, and I have to read it because both of the folks are good folks. So, but we're going to put it at the end. So you got to hang around. You might get a laugh out of it if you know these folks. Fleet Enaman, y'all. This was so cool. Steven, I think that's the name, bought this, and he sent me a message. He says, you know what? Let's do some charity with it. Why don't you not send it to me, and we'll sell it for charity, and we'll give it to one of the kids' charities. What an amazing gesture and a gift. Thank you for that. I'm going to put this over on an auction this coming week over on Dibdit, and all of the proceeds for this is going to go to a charity. He did not mention which one. And when people don't mention which one, we usually do St. Jude. So thank you very, very much for that. We appreciate you. So when I was digging, I found a few things I think are very interesting. But just before we get into that, the numbers, I'm not going to read them to you, but the overall growth numbers for reselling essentially secondhand goods of any sort is strong. And the outlook is very, very good. Let's just put it that way. Especially when you compare it to retail brick and mortar. They're not even close, I got to be honest with you. So I'm very bullish on this in the long term. However, there are a few concerns. One of them, I wanted to get to this, but one of them I find very interesting, which is well, I'll tell you what. I'm going to get to that one in a second. Let me talk about this. That point's more important than this one, but I think this one is very intriguing to me, and I actually disagree with it a little bit. Some recommendations, some guidance for folks like us who are, well, maybe not all of us, who are trying to make this into a legitimate business where you're actually making money that is doing something for you, not just, a couple $100 a month. And I don't say that insultingly. I think the vast majority of people who resell like we do, or the stuff we do, they're not doing it for a living. But there are certainly people in the audience that do. But I do find this really interesting. A recommendation in the coming marketplace as things are shifting. If you're a reseller, or if you're a seller building a business like we just talked about, diversify across, because this is actually contradictory to some of the things I've been seeing lately. But diversify across 2 to 3 complementary platforms. We're talking about selling platforms here. 1 vertical specialist platform, 1 mass C2C platform, and 1 social or local channel. And I think this applies to a lot of us. Now, those are big fancy words. Vertical specialist is basically I guess you call it a niche down marketplace, and maybe StockX, Vinted, those kind of things. Maybe Depop a little bit, but that's really not completely accurate of them either. So that's one thing you can do. And then they say to add a second or maybe a third, 1 mass C2C, that's eBay. That's consumer to consumer, that's eBay. That's that's all kinds of stuff. And then 1 social local channel. I think that's what you see a lot of people doing. There are a lot of people who are in this business. I would say most people are in 2 categories, if you will. 1 mass C2C, they sell on eBay. And then they're dabbling in some other marketplace somehow, some way to get rid of other goods, to sell them off quicker, to manage inventory, whatever it is. And I see that on Dibdit. I see almost every seller over there on Dibdit, with some exceptions. Some are full-time on Dibdit. Well, not full-time, but that's the only place they resell. Just like some are full-time on Whatnot or whatever. And then some people are doing like me. I'm doing a hybrid. I'm essentially doing two different things. One mass C2C and then Dibdit. I have a few other things going on as well. And I'm toying with a few ideas that I'll get to later, which is I want to always be an everything seller. Always. I don't ever want to change it. I think there are technologies and things in place where you can be both. You can be an everything seller who's selling in a niche in a marketplace or in a show that's labeled for whatever it is you're selling, and you can gain an audience if you're finding a lot of that stuff. There's different ways to do this. Personally, I think the vertical specialist marketplaces, with some exception, I think the card market, especially as a vertical marketplace, if you find specific marketplaces just for doing collectible cards, for instance, I think those things are growing exponentially at this point. But it's also very volatile, and you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket if you're trying to make a business out of it. Because, man, things can change quickly if you're dealing with one particular niche. But I think there's more and more people who are niching down as everything sellers. I'm seeing more, especially people using this list easier thing. Almost all, well, I shouldn't say almost all. Many of the people I'm talking to are literally opening second stores for niched down product. And I think this is a good strategy. I just don't want to do it. But the connectivity between your eBay stores at this point, some people have 5 different eBay stores, and they're using the list easier to put everything in bulk that's in a niche in each one of those categories. I find it interesting. And they're almost doing it as an experiment. And some of the guidance that's coming out is telling people to do that. I've never seen that before. I've heard talking heads like me tell people you should niche down, you can, make more money that way, whatever. To me, that's always, well, it's been kind of boring for me, not for everybody. But it's also been it has much more risk to it. Because if one market, let's say you're just a hat seller 2 years ago, 3, 4 years ago, you were killing it. Whew, now you're not killing it. I probably shouldn't have said that way. I was trying to come up with an example. There are probably still just hat sellers out there that are still killing it. I'm just saying that market kind of tanked for a while. You could still sell hats. I still sell hats. But I don't pay as much for them as I used to because you can't get as much as you used to for some of them. Rainbow Bright Doll, I was at a sale the other day. My buddy Bizarro Kevin was there, and he's like, oh, I'm like, that's Rainbow Bright. He didn't know what it was. I don't know where he grew up, but he didn't have the pop culture knowledge, I guess. He's like, yeah, I paid $1 for it. I'm like, yeah, it's probably worth $15. I said, I'll give you $5 for it. He's like, okay. And I took it. $17.95 is what it sold for, so I owe you $3. No, I don't. I'll give you an extra $1, Kevin. $17.95 plus shipping, and it went to a viewer. And I'm not niched down, but I'm really kind of considering on the eBay side of my business doing a little bit. I might open a second store, y'all. I really might. I might do it. I might open a third store. I'm contemplating it. I don't know that it's the right decision at this point. But I listed a ton of ephemera the other day using List Eeasier, and I think I might do a lot more of that, and I might have an ephemera store. And then I might have a nostalgia store, which would be the biggest amount of what I sell, and then I might have an everything else store. And I know there's a lot of sellers out there who have done this for a while. The connectivity between them is way easier. You can send out offers, for instance, through all your stores all in one click. So I'm thinking about it, but we'll see. Thank you. I got a lot of these viewers, so there's 6, like I said. But at the beginning here, thank you. I love watching your videos. I'm a special ed teacher hoping to move into reselling full-time one day. Well, you might find this video interesting. I love your name. I miss, or is that a 1? 1 as like I miss the 80s is your name on here. Thank you. I appreciate it. Hope you enjoy it. Anybody else out there? Tell me if you have multiple stores. Tell me if that's something you're thinking about. I'm looking for a guava. I think this is it. Guava 15. I think that's right. There you go. Rode phone case, lip gloss, lip color, lip tint, whatever it is, $25 plus shipping. If you hear somebody snoring, it's not me, I promise. All right, ribbon. This one sold for $30, $19, $19, and $25. I just went and pulled them all out. So sometimes it's tough, you know, you got to get the right ones. Look at that. The Grinch shirt has come out. Is that your favorite or Home Alone?
I like Home Alone.
Home Alone better, he says. All right, me too. I just dropped my car off somewhere, so I gotta get back on track what I was talking about. But I know there's 2 more points I want to make that I think are really interesting. Big dogs. Bought this for $1 at a yard sale. Wasn't huge money, but definitely worth $1. This one sold for $18.95. Perfect weather to sell it in, plus shipping. So a little secondhand fashion, which has been growing for quite some time, still has a pretty good trajectory to it. I don't know that we'll see massive growth in secondhand fashion, but it's going to be steady growth because eBay has a strong presence in used goods, collectibles. We did a video about collectibles the other day. I think it's important. Refurbished items, sectors where consumers increasingly shop for value and sustainability. This positions eBay sellers in segments with growth potential. So I totally agree with that. That's not the most important point here. Listen to this here. Key challenges and risks for eBay sellers. While the narrative is positive overall, there are meaningful headwinds and particular considerations to keep in mind. Slower growth. Still growth. Macro drag. eBay's recent results showed modest growth, and they have for quite some time. I'm not going to get into all that. eBay itself cites a challenged macro environment, European weakness, tariff uncertainty. It's not just the tariffs either. As far as Europe goes, the VAT stuff and the complexity of trading with European countries is ridiculous, in my opinion. For a seller, this means you face slower growth of buyer demand, especially for non-essentials and high-cost items. I gotta say, I kind of disagreed with that part. I think that high-expense type items are actually a pretty decent. I talked about a bifurcated economy not too long ago. I gotta find this right game, and I'm not seeing it right off the bat. Okay, I found it. It's down here. And like I said, when I read that, I'm like, no, there's a lot of people. High-end is doing okay right now, no doubt. I think there's more pressure on very low-end mass consumer type goods. And then the next thing I read, I was like, okay, yeah, now you're making sense. Nintendo GameCube. This was bought with a 5% off coupon. So this is one of those 6 viewer sales we talked about today. And that means they use code Commonwealth and they can get 5% off of anything that they order. Nintendo GameCube, Nintendo Mutant Ninja Turtles, $16.95 plus shipping. And looks like, this one went to Pipe Dreamer. Awesome. Thank you very, very much. Kevin, thank you so much for all the uplifting and inspirational videos. I love the way you approach topics from a macro lens and then take time to explore the angles and engage your audience. Look, somebody notices. Some people are like, oh, I don't want to hear all that. I just want to hear what applies to me. But honestly, this is a channel of, it's probably one of the few where I try to look at all angles of it, for the very big players, for the, middle of the road players, for the making an extra $600-800 a month players and trying to grow it, the dreamers who want to be full-time, and the little folks who just want to make a $5 or $10 a day. And it's something fun to do, and they're retired or whatever. This is a big, big game for a lot of different people with a lot of different interests. So anyways, Dustin, thank you. Appreciate you. Appreciate you being part of DibDid as well. You are wonderfully supportive over there. I know you're making some money off a lot of the stuff you're buying. He sent me a message the other day, bought something from me. I think it was a Barney plush. He's like, yeah, I sold that sucker for $20. I'm like, sweet. Probably got it for $4 or $5 or something like that. So anyway, appreciate it. So when I read the next part, growth isn't uniform across categories. I think this is part of the reason I don't really ever want to just be a niche down seller, but I am very intrigued with the idea of having multiple niches and being an everything seller at the same time and separating them. There's so many opportunities to do that, especially with different ways to sell. You could be a niche down live seller who only sells, X, Y, or Z live. Then you sell everything over here, and then maybe you have a second store that's even niche. Who knows? There's just so many opportunities. And they delve into this in here and get into great detail. Some Clark loafers in the box. And they didn't sell for a ton, $18.95 plus shipping. But if you remember at that sale a couple weeks ago on Commonwealth Picker Channel, I was buying stuff. I bought a truck full of stuff, no joke. An entire truck full of stuff. I paid $120, and one item out of there sold for $150. and it was insane. So that was in that batch. Sorry for the deep dive today. This stuff has really intrigued me because I'm trying to find my path. I know basically what I want to do, but the little ins and outs of how I want to do it, or what I'm trying to figure out where the trends are going. I mentioned it in collectibles the other day. There's bigger growth in collectibles. Now, a lot of that has to do with the card market, and I don't really want much to do with that. Although I do like some of it, and so I'm trying to figure it out. But collectibles, trading cards, there's all kinds of things. Some high value or high interest categories are doing well. Other very low price mass goods might face margin compression. No doubt about that. We've seen that for years, and we're going to continue to see it. I just, maybe not quite as bad as it's been in the past because of the international stuff that's going on around the world where, you know, mass consumer dumps aren't quite as possible as they used to be. And the end of de minimis and all that stuff. International shipping, returns, and cross-border operations, and the complexity and cost. I would love for eBay in the US to have just this global market that is booming. It's just so hard with all of the different, let's just face it, bureaucracy going on in different places, especially in Europe over the last decade. It's really gotten out of control. And of course, well, I'm not going to get into politics, but really the only way that you can try to start fixing that is on our end. And I think we've tried to do that. I don't know where it's going to end up though, y'all. It's going to be interesting. If you rely heavily on one niche regionally, you risk local demand fluctuations. And regionally is probably not the best term for that. But if you are relying on one category and talking about the niching down. If you do rely on one category and one category alone, it's too much risk in my opinion. However, I still think it's a good strategy for folks who have the ability to adjust very quickly. Not just in what they're selling, but the sourcing side of it as well. And I think pretty much any niche, up or down, you can make money on, even if it's going down. If you are truly an expert and you still know what sells, and you're the expert in the category, definitely important. That's going to lead me to my last and most important point here in a second. Reagan is on a roll here. This is another Reagan listed item. I bought these thinking they'd go through List Easier and just did not have the time last week, and I was just searching for stuff that could be done quickly. And I know that seems oxymoronic because List Easier is faster, but it does take the process of taking pictures of everything before you do it, and we're just doing one-offs really quick to get some stuff up. Bought like 22 of these, and I paid $100. And I thought the lowest end ones would be around $15 and the highest end ones would be around $50. This is a lower end one. $17.05 plus shipping. I mean, even if that was what they also sold for, I'd still, what's that, 340 bucks or 50 bucks, 60 bucks, something like that. I think we'll be closer to 450 to 500 on those. So it wasn't a bad deal. It was pretty good, actually. It is a little bit time consuming to do those. So here we go. So put all this stuff together. I've got some things, and I wanted to see what they said along these lines right here. So what does this all mean to you as a seller? Focus on strong categories. Duh. Optimize listing quality. Duh. Although this has to do with what we're talking about, and they're pointing in this direction as well. The AI generated stuff for titles and whatever. eBay has not come through on their magic listing stuff or whatever. List Easier does. Code Commonwealth down below. Use that link. Leverage new features. I hear this all the time. If eBay's offering something, use it. And I usually do, but some of them I don't. I don't want to use the promoted. That's just me. Diversify with platform and within platform and externally. So in one hand, they're saying, hey, niching down and whatever, and you'll see this in a minute. And the other side, they're saying diversity in platform, inside the platform and externally. And so those two actually, I think, for the first time ever, really can go hand in hand because we have so many options to both diversify and niche down at the same time, because we're talking about two different things here. Monitor your margins and costs. If you're not doing that, you really need to already. My Reseller Genie. They tell you all that stuff down to the detail. It's pretty cool. Stay agile and informed. I think these last two are very important. One always has been and is more important now than ever. And the other one, I think I would have disagreed with in the past, but I agree with now. Stay agile and informed. Never has that been so important as it is right now. That's my opinion. If you're going to do things the same old ways forever and ever and ever, you're eventually going to see a lag. Platform policies, fee structures, algorithm changes, being aware gives you a competitive edge. Build brand trust. This is where I would have probably disagreed in the past. I used to think when I'd hear people say that, like, brand what? I'm selling, there's no brand here. But being on social media, I have realized that I am the brand. And I'm very, very conscious of that, especially when I'm selling live. You know, if people have issues and stuff, if they're coming back to a live show, for instance, if I'm on Dibdit, they need to trust me. And I hope that I've built that trust with people. I have people send me messages like, oh, you know, you don't need to do anything about this, but I just want to make you aware of this. I'm like, what do you mean I don't need to do anything about it? I want you to be happy. I want you to be happy because I want you to come back tomorrow and for the next 6 years. And so that's more important for me on that live selling side, but it's important over here on eBay. And if you're going to be a niche down seller, what are you doing that's unique? What are you doing that's different? You got to add value to this. If you can do that, you can charge more money. I used to hear people talk about this on eBay, like brand trust and what. I'm like, really? Half the people don't even realize or care. But I think it is more and more important as we diversify into different ways of reselling. As a seller, if you build a strong reputation, good feedback, consistent niche expertise, I see so many people doing this now. They are the experts in whatever they're selling. You're more likely to succeed as visibility becomes more competitive. Okay, I like that. I see a guy, I've mentioned this guy for years. He sells nothing but pieces to old toys. You've probably seen him on there when you look up a piece and he's got his little label thing in there. I'm like, man, how do you make a living selling, you know, $4 plus shipping little swords for a Ninja Turtle or something? I don't know. But man, you can do it. And that guy's the trend. And I look at what his stuff sells for, and it's always way more than everybody else's. All right, we sold another Sting one. Boy, we've sold a bunch of these, y'all. I sold to one person. They don't go for much, but like I said, they have a ton of them. And then we sold another one of this. Goes to one person. This went to a viewer right here. And Goldberg bumper sticker. And the 766, $6.99, I think, is what we got. And like I said, that went to a viewer. It went to Mark. Saw my buddy. Okay, remember when somebody bought? This is funny. People want a shout out, you know, you might as well go for the cheap items. Saw my buddy Dan pick up one of these and saw you shout him out on a video. I would love a shout out as well in the future. Awesome. So Mark, here's your shout out. Awesome. Thank you for doing that. I appreciate it and I hope you enjoy it. Okay, the sixth and I guess final viewer sale, except for the one I said at the beginning that I was going to read at the end. So like I said, 30% of my sales to viewers. You guys have overwhelmed me. Thank you. All right, I dug these two out. I'm not sure. I have to look if one of them went to a viewer and one of them didn't. Or maybe they both did, but or both to the same person. I'm not quite sure. I've often said that I can't get this up. It's too heavy. I've said that I will be getting Social Security before these are all sold. And big shout out to my buddy Ivan who hooked me up with these years ago. They have been fun. And they don't make a ton of money, y'all. $6.29 and $6.44 plus shipping. That's Gertie earrings, and that is E.T. Drag earrings. These are unpunched. However, sometimes when they arrive, they're punched. But we try to do our best. All right, so Joshua, thank you. Chicago Street Mercantile. Purchasing these for my wife, Stephanie's birthday. We are both huge fans of your picker and flipper channels. And I've learned so much from you. Check out our eBay store, Chicago. And they've got the little asterisk there, Street asterisk Mercantile. Would love a sticker for the garage fridge as well. Thank you. You are, well, I'm thanking you. Thank you very much. And I'm going to throw in a sticker. I've been doing that a little bit lately. Maybe that's why we bumped up our sales. We always throw in the little ones, but sometimes I'll throw in another one as well. So we appreciate you, and I got to let the dog in. So I want to get to the summary of this and what it all means. But I've got to pick 3 more items really quick. And this should be in here. I saw it the other day when I was digging for something. And there they are right there. 3 bandanas. It's been almost a year exactly because this sale is a week away that I bought it from last year. They're 3 Harley Davidson bandanas. I paid $1 a piece for them. A little vintage one. I had higher hopes, to be honest with you. And they just didn't sell. But they finally did it 30% off. For $25.16. plus shipping. So 3 into 25 plus is not bad. And I'm very happy this next one's gone. It's been well over a year and like 4 months since I bought this one, because I remember where I bought this one from too. And it has been clogging this space up. I only paid $1 for it though. Now, I've seen it 8 million times. There it is right there. I'm like, man, I hope these sell eventually. And, you know, we're not making much on these. I thought they'd go for a little bit more, but cheap price, so who cares, right? Donald Duck in a boat, plush. Don't you think that should go for more money than that? I should put it on Dibdit. I bet I got more money on Dibdit because it looks so stinking cool. I love that. You got the tags on them and everything. Sitting in a hat, a Donald Duck hat. And they sold for $10.46 plus shipping because they were on 30% off. So still making money, but I had, like I said, I had higher hopes. Who's this guy? Oh, I know what that is. Oh, Reagan's here. Hi. What do you need, babe? All right, Reagan came in. She's a little mother hen because my wife has been gone. So she makes sure that Turner does what he's supposed to, and he wouldn't do it. So she came and tattled on him, which I tell her to. He hasn't eaten anything since breakfast. She's like, because we got to go in a minute. He's like, would you come in here and tell him he's got to eat something? I'm like, okay. This giant print Bible, Old Time Gospel Hour, which is right here. Well, not right here, but down the road about 35 minutes. The Old Thomas Road Baptist Church. Here it is. I said I would read it. You bought it. And Brian Big and Fun is, if he tells me to do something, I got to do it. So here we go. Sending this to New Jersey Picker. If you don't know who New Jersey Picker is, well, if you're on Dibdit, you do. Although you haven't sold over there in a while. Got to get back on it. He also helps run the Trash to Cash reselling group on Facebook. Send this to New Jersey Picker since he has really leaned into selling smut and is involved in some unsavory activities and could use some churching. Please add a note that Brian Big and Fun will be his moral compass. Brian, thank you. Thank you for always watching and being a supporter. We appreciate you. Thank you to Chris, New Jersey Picker, as well, for all the help over the years. And I can't wait to get you back over there on Dibdit selling. Y'all should come and join us. It's a good time. I've got to know so many people over there that I can't, just through the comments and stuff over there, over here, and Facebook and all that. It's been fun. All right, I got to hit this with the very last point. All right, final summary here. I like this the best. I think it's not spot on, but I think it's right. But I want to mention something really quick because I've got a lot of messages lately about our honey, our Commonwealth Picker honey. We've had a blast with it. We're doing a little bit of a charity fundraiser with it as well. Just $1 per bottle, but it's still fun. And those are over. We're not selling those on CommonwealthPicker.com at the moment. We're going to just do those on Dibdit because we have very limited supply. I mean, the beast can only make so much. So right now, we are going to sell them statically over there, though. So you can do that. Maybe I should price it because you get $5 off if you've never bought before. Maybe I'll price it. It has to be a $10 item. So we might price it at $10 so you can go over there and use that coupon thing. Just use code Commonwealth. You can get it for $5. It's not over there yet because we're still waiting on the labels. It might be by the time this video comes out. Anyway, yes, being a seller on eBay can be a long-term viable strategy. The platform is making investments that benefit sellers, tools, reach, category focus, but the margin of success, here's the key point. I really think this is true. But the margin of success will depend heavily on how you sell, what you sell, and how you adapt. 100%. 100%. If I had to give one sentence verdict for sellers who focus on niches and multiple niches, use the platform's tools and optimize operations. That's key too. We talk about it all the time. eBay offers sustainable long-term potential. For those who treat it passively or compete at a commodity low end without differentiation, the risk of plateau or decline is very possible. And I think that is the case. So, having fun and going out there and doing what we do, you're always going to be fine. You're always going to make money on it. But I think when I'm out there picking and stuff, there's a purpose and a point to everything I'm doing. And sometimes I'm going out there specifically to buy for live reselling. Sometimes I'm going out there specifically to buy for eBay. And I'm concentrating on things that I sell really well. That's why people laugh at me all the time about shoes. Like, why did you not get those shoes? I'm like, I hate them. But I sell them too, so, it's always, you got to weigh this stuff out, know your numbers, know your processes, And don't let all that stuff take away and rob you from the fun that this is to resell. Thank you all for joining us, and I can't wait to see you next time.